The Americans are interested in their military base with more than 1,000 soldiers who do not make any decisive contribution to the fight against terrorism. I do not think they have any reason to be here anymore. I think they should draw their own conclusions. We're at war. Why did we abandon the French? Because they were useless to us. They only complicated the situation. Our Prime Minister said that we need American sponsors or investors, not American soldiers. If they cannot help us eradicate terrorism, then they should leave. They have to take responsibility for themselves. Our country is now part of the Sahel Alliance of States. This alliance adheres to fundamental principles. I think the best choice for Niger and all the countries that make up the Sahel Alliance is Russia. In addition, Turkey and Iran can be considered. We welcome any country that pursues an honest policy and is able to assist us in ensuring the security of our country.
African leaders are often described as puppets to the West. But over the years, this trend seems to have changed or seems to be changing. Welcome to Mandela Unveiled. The name is Mandela. Make sure to subscribe and leave us a comment. In recent times, have realized that our relationship with the West should not all be about doing the biddings of the West. Rather, it should be more of a partnership, a mutual partnership, where it is a win-win game. Before now, the Francophone West African countries only relied on France, and France exploited them. But most of these countries have come to a realization that they need to stand up for themselves. Not only the Francophone African countries, but some Anglophone countries. As a matter of fact, African leaders. Though they may act or they may portray in some way to be weak when it comes to the West, but their positions when it comes to dealing with the West in recent times has been something that so many people really admire. One typical example of such leader is Paul Kagame. He often defies the West. He often tells the West to stay away from anything that has to do with Rwanda's democracy. And he has tried as much as possible to grow Rwanda into the country that it is today. Even till today, people still question Paul Kagame. They describe him as a dictator. Well, some may see him in a different light. Yoweri Museveni of Uganda, who tried to implement the anti-gay or the anti-LGBTQI law, he faced stern opposition from the West, yet he passed the bill. And some other countries, in time past, most of these leaders would succumb to the pressure from the United States and some part of the West. Recently, we have witnessed coups in the Guinea, in Niger, Mali, and Burkina Faso. These four countries are West African countries, and they are Francophone. First, they expelled the French troops from their countries, with the exception of Guinea. They pulled out of ECOWAS, citing reasons that everyone knows or perceived to be true, that ECOWAS serves as a what? A puppet to the West. Now they have formed their own group in the Sahel region to fight terrorism. Another country that has taken a bold step against the United States is Niger. After kicking the French troops out of Niger, and chasing the French out of Niger and cutting all diplomatic ties with France. The Nigerian junta has done it again. In no time, the United States base in Niger will pack their bag and baggage and leave the country's capital, Niamey. You see, the Nigerian junta has leveled some accusations against the United States government. Just listen to these accusations.
The government of Niger regrets the will of the American delegation to deny the sovereign Nigerian people the right to choose their partners and the type of partnership that can help them truly fight terrorism, even though the United States of America has unilaterally decided to suspend all cooperation between our two countries. Therefore, the government of Niger strongly denounces the condescending attitude accompanied by the threat of reprisals on the part of the head of the American delegation vis-à-vis the government and the Nigerian people. The American presence on the territory of the Republic of Niger is illegal and violates all the constitutional and democratic rules that would like the sovereign people, in particular through its elected representatives, to be consulted for the installation of a foreign army on the national territory.
Time passed. Like I said, countries used to be so submissive to the United States and its allies. Most African countries and their leadership, for that matter, used to kowtow or engage in some form of bootlicking attitude, hypocritical attitude. As Shamora Michel will say, that hypocrisy is the commander-in-chief of all African leaders. But I believe African leaders are trying to turn that tide. But I don't know whether the United States and its allies are sometimes delusional to some of these happenings around them. You don't wake up and travel from the United States to a different sovereign country without following the necessary diplomatic protocol to visit that country. And out of courtesy, they still had to meet you. And all they could tell you is, you should get out of their country. I don't think that the Nigerian junta can wake up and travel to the United States of America if the necessary diplomatic procedures are not followed for them to what? Visit the United States or travel to the White House. So why would the Assistant Secretary of State and the African commander should know better and should have stopped this visit. You see, when you put up such behavior, just like the spokesperson Abdurrahman said, is so condescending, and any leader would feel the same. We must bear in mind that this military junta in Niger is not democratically elected. These are military men who have trained under the United States military base in Niger. And with our experience with the military in Africa, West Africa, they do not care who you are. When they take decisions, they are firm by their decisions. And they are the most disciplined people in Ghana and in Western Africa, where I come from. In West Africa, if you want to maintain peace, sanity, decorum, you just have to deploy the military and they will maintain sanity. They will bring sanity into the system because people, the sight of the military uniform, they shiver. And I don't know, the African commander in Niger should have known better and advised the United States delegation to stay put. Wait for situations to normalize before you visit. Maybe this action or this withdrawal of the United States troops or the ripping that contract or accord off would have been prevented. Well, like I said, the United States, probably the leaders of the United States, still live in some fantasy world. And in my previous submissions, I made claim to the fact that Russia is gaining grounds in Africa. China is gaining grounds in Africa. And if you listen to the submissions, Niger is open to Russia. Niger is open to Iran, Turkey, and other partners whom they feel. And most of these countries, the United States and their allies do not have any good relationship with Iran, Russia, and to some extent China. And African countries, most African countries are leaning towards China because doing business with China, most of them see the conditions to be favorable. They see it as a win-win kind of trade. The United States must wake up to this realization and know that her position in Africa is no longer unshakable. However they decide to handle their diplomatic relationship with African countries is left unto them. It's either they deal with African countries with the respect that they deserve, or they risk losing their allies to Russia and China. However, these actions do not come without repercussions. The withdrawal of French troops, and now the seeming withdrawal of the US troops and the US base in the Sahel region could further compromise the whole West African sub-region, because these countries do not have what it takes to fight off the bandits. A typical example is what banditry is doing to Nigeria. And these are the same bandits living in the Sahel region. Ghana is at risk, Ivory Coast is at risk, Burkina Faso, Togo. You can name any West African country. So inasmuch as people praise these military juntas and this military leadership in these countries for taking the bold actions, the question we need to ask ourselves is, do these countries have what it takes to sustain and maintain the peace when these countries are gone? It may appear that the French and the United States do not bring something to the table, but does their presence alone deter some of these bandits? Does the presence of the United States drones for surveillance purposes deter or detect the activities of these bandits? Surely it does. And does the withdrawal of the United States and the French troops mean further compromise and security? Yes. And does Niger have what it takes to continue the good work and maintain the peace? That I doubt, because the Russians, whom the Nigerians rely on, are also coming in with their interest. No country comes in and put your interests above theirs. No, they are coming to invest in your country, And once they are coming to invest in your countries, they need a returns on their investment. So this military junta, some of these things they are doing is just daydreaming. Because one, Niger has the lowest education rate, one of the lowest education rates in the whole world. The adult literacy rate is about 13.6%. That is very low. And more than 50% of children between the ages of 7 to 15 do not attend school in Niger. Meanwhile, Niger has one of the youngest population in this world. So where does it put this country? It means that education, invested education, takes a long period. That's why when teachers go on strike, the effects are not felt immediately like healthcare. But over the years, we see those effects manifest. A typical example is Nigeria, where we've had numerous strikes, and now the educational system in Nigeria is nothing to write home about. Therefore, if all these military aid is to leave Niger, already the country spent less than 4.5% of its GDP on education. Meaning more of the money would be invested into fighting banditry. And these are military juntas. They are accountable to no one. Well, time will tell as to how this military junta in Niger is going to perform. But as it stands, there's a lot of skepticism about the future of Niger. The future is bleak. The future is bleak for the sub-Saharan African region of West Africa. Well, it is what it is. They've kicked out the French, they've kicked out the United States. Do you think this is the right decision? And should we be scared as a West African sub-region? Should this be the time where more countries need to have personal or bilateral relationships with Niger, Mali, and Burkina Faso in West Africa? Let me know what you think in the comment section. Until we meet again next time, make sure to subscribe, leave us a comment, share our videos, and press the notification button so whenever we post a video, you'll be notified. Thank you. Adios.